Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into what feels like a really pivotal moment in the world of artificial intelligence. Forget the usual black box proprietary models for just a moment, because we're talking about a fascinating new development from OpenAI, something that's about power, accessibility, and, well, a surprising move towards openness.
Precisely. Yeah, this deep dive is all about OpenAI's recent release, GPT-OSS 120B and GPT-OSS 20B. And these aren't just, new model names. They really represent a significant shift, maybe philosophically as well as technologically. They're making advanced AI capabilities much more broadly available than, frankly, we've seen from them in quite a while. Our mission today is to really unpack what open weight means here, how these models manage to be so powerful yet so accessible, and critically what their arrival signifies for developers, for businesses, and maybe for you listening if you're looking to build or innovate with AI.
Okay, that's a powerful mission statement. And we're drawing our insights straight from the source, OpenAI's own article, introducing VTS. Our goal, as always, is to pull out the most important bits of knowledge, the key insights, giving you that essential shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about what really could be a game-changing release. So let's start with the main idea then. OpenAI, a company, let's be honest, often associated with closed proprietary models, has now dropped two new open-weight language models. We've got GPT-OSS 120B and GPT-OSS 20B. This feels like a very big deal, especially considering they haven't really put out open-weight language models like this since, what, GPT-2? What's actually significant about that open-weight label here?
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here isn't just that they're open weight, but how open they are. These models are available under a flexible Apache 2.0 license. Now, that sounds technical, but it's a really strategic choice. It means pretty much unrestricted commercial use, modification, distribution. This is a direct contrast to purely proprietary models. And it challenges the perception of OpenAI as being just closed. It complements their existing hosted models, sure, but it also seems like a move to maybe disrupt other proprietary API providers and really empower a much wider community.
Okay. So if I'm a developer then, or maybe running a business, or even just someone curious wanting to experiment, how does this open weight release actually change things for me? What can these models do?
Well, the core promise, I think, is strong real-world performance, but coupled with surprisingly low cost and high efficiency. They're engineered, according to OpenAI, to consistently outperform other open models of a similar size on those key reasoning tasks. And that's not just a small step. It could be a pretty significant leap for the open source AI world.
That sounds impressive. But can you give us a more sort of tangible sense of their power? Like, where do they really stand out?
Absolutely. Let's take the bigger one first. GPT-OSS 120B. It apparently achieves near parity with OpenAI's own A4 Mini.
Okay, their latest compact model.
Exactly, their high-performance compact offering.
Right.
But here's where it gets, I think, really compelling. It actually outperforms some established proprietary models. We're talking older OpenAI models like O1 and even their flagship GPT-4o on certain specific high-stakes tasks.
Really? Which tasks?
Things like health bench, that's a tough medical reasoning challenge, and also competition mathematics, specifically 2024 and 2025 problems. This really points to a targeted strength in complex analytical problem solving. It's not just generally good, it seems exceptionally good at specific difficult things.
Okay, wow. And what about the smaller one, the GPT-OSS 20B? How does that measure up?
Well, despite its, comparatively smaller size, GPT-OSS 20B delivers results pretty similar to OpenAI's O3 Mini on common benchmarks. And it also seems to punch above its weight sometimes, outperforming O3 Mini on both that competition math and some health-related queries. Importantly, both models demonstrate really robust tool use capabilities, few-shot function calling, and strong chain of thought, or COTA, reasoning.
Okay, Kotai.
Yeah, and these capabilities, they weren't just asserted, they've been validated through evaluations like the Taubench Agentic Evaluation Suite, which specifically tests how well models can act like intelligent agents.
Right, and something that really jumped out at me in the article was their compatibility with OpenAI's Responses API, and crucially, their design specifically for agentic workflows. That sounds like a potential game changer for developers. Can you maybe elaborate on what that means for someone actually trying to build something?
You're absolutely right, it's a huge deal. It means they have exceptional instruction following and the ability to effectively use external tools. Think about web search, or running Python code, or integrating with other APIs. They can even dynamically adjust how much reasoning effort they put into different tasks.
Adjust reasoning effort.
Yeah, balancing speed and accuracy depending on what's needed for that specific application. This isn't just about generating text anymore. It's enabling models to act and reason within complex environments.
Okay, that leads to a practical question then about flexibility. If I'm using these, how much control do I actually have?
Quite a lot, actually. They are designed to be entirely customizable. You can fine-tune them on your own data, which is critical for many applications. They support structured outputs, so you have full control over the response format. And importantly, they provide full chain-of-thought
So
capabilities.
you can see the reasoning.
Exactly. Developers can actually peer into the model's reasoning process. This is combined with that ability you mentioned to set the reasoning effort low, medium, or high, which is a key practical insight for deployment, right?
Hmm.
You can literally tell the model, okay, think harder on this one or speed this up to balance latency and performance based on your specific needs, potentially optimizing your compute costs quite significantly.
We've heard about these impressive capabilities, but how did OpenAI actually manage this? Let's maybe peel back the curtain a bit. What's the underlying tech, the magic powering these open weight models?
Well, the GPT-OSS models were trained using OpenAI's most advanced pre-training and post-training methods. The focus during training wasn't just, raw performance across the board. It was specifically on reasoning, efficiency, and real-world usability. They used a really sophisticated mix of reinforcement learning and techniques that were informed by their cutting-edge frontier systems, including their O3 model. That really shows the depth of research going into this.
And structurally, architecturally, what makes them unique? What's going on under the hood that allows this performance in an open weight format?
Both models are built on the transformer architecture. That's foundational.
Yeah.
But they heavily leverage a mixture of experts or MOE architecture.
Yeah.
And this isn't just a minor tweak, it's a pretty fundamental architectural choice. It allows these models to be massive in their potential. Like GPT-OSS 120B has a huge 117 billion total parameters,
Wow.
but incredibly nimble in execution. It only activates about 5.1 billion of those parameters for any given token it processes. The smaller 20B model, similarly, has 21 billion total parameters, but only activates about 3.6 billion per token. It means they're not carrying all that weight all the time.
So less active parameters means
Right.
more efficiency, significant compute and memory savings when you actually deploy them.
Exactly. That's the core benefit. They also use some other clever tricks like alternating dense and locally banded sparse attention patterns, similar to GPT-3 actually. And for inference and memory efficiency, they use grouped multi-query attention. They rely on rotary positional embedding, ROPE, for handling word order in long sequences,
Repeat.
which lets them natively support context lengths up to a massive 128,000 tokens.
128K context. Wow.
Yeah, it's huge. All these sophisticated techniques really combine for one main goal,
Wow.
to deliver that cutting-edge performance while making the models incredibly efficient. And that efficiency makes them vastly more accessible for deployment on a much wider range of hardware, from big cloud servers right down to edge devices.
The article also mentioned their post-training process, things like a supervised fine-tuning stage, a high compute reinforcement learning stage, all aligned with the OpenAI model spec. Sounds very rigorous, very intentional.
It does seem that way.
Yeah.
And crucially, regarding that chain of thought, the COTE, their internal reasoning,
Mm-hmm.
they explicitly state they did not put direct supervision on the COTE for either model.
Why is that important?
Well, it's potentially useful for monitoring model misbehavior or misuse without the COTE itself being overly, let's say, aligned or censored. However, and this is a really critical warning for developers, these raw COTEs should not be shown directly to end users, ever.
Right.
They are uncurated, internal thought processes. They might contain factual errors, hallucinations, potentially offensive or unsafe content. They're a debugging tool for the developer, not a public-facing feature.
Okay, that's a very important distinction. So this brings us to the practical side again, the so what for listeners. What does this release actually enable in the real world? How does all this efficiency translate into benefits?
I think the most immediate impact is just unprecedented efficiency and accessibility for deployment. Imagine running a powerful AI like this, not just in the cloud, but maybe on your laptop or even on edge devices. The GPT-OSS 120B model, the big one, can apparently run efficiently on a single 80 gigabit GPU. That's, a high-end consumer card, but still within reach for many.
Yeah, attainable.
Right. And even more impressively, the GPT-OSS 20B can run on edge devices with just 16 gigabytes of memory. Plus, they're natively quantized in MXFP4. Basically, they're built from the ground up to be incredibly lean with memory.
So less expensive hardware needed.
Much less expensive hardware right out of the box without needing complex optimization steps afterwards. This is huge for local inference, for on-device AI, and for rapid iteration by developers without needing that costly large-scale cloud setup.
The article mentions they worked with some early partners, AI, Sweden, Orange, Snowflake. What did they learn from collaborating with them? What was the real-world utility?
Yeah, those partnerships highlighted the diverse applications. For instance, hosting the models on premises. That's a critical benefit for organizations with really strict data security or privacy needs, something that's often tricky with pure API models.
Right, data residency and control.
Exactly. And they also fine-tune the models on specialized proprietary data sets. This just underscores the customization and security advantages that open-weight models offer compared to just calling an API. It gives organizations much more control.
Okay, let's talk safety. It's always a huge concern with AI, maybe even more so when models are open and widely available. Given how capable these sound, what steps did OpenAI actually take to release them responsibly?
Safety seems absolutely foundational to their approach here, and they appear to have taken it very seriously. During pre-training, for example, they proactively filtered out certain types of harmful data. They specifically mentioned CBRN content, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear.
Okay, filtering dangerous knowledge.
Right. And then during post-training, they used advanced techniques like deliberative alignment and something called an instruction hierarchy to explicitly teach the models to refuse unsafe prompts and also defend against prompt injections. They even took what seems like an unprecedented step. They adversarially fine-tuned a version of GPS 120B specifically to test worst-case malicious use, benchmarking it against their internal preparedness framework.
That sounds intense. What were the results of that extreme safety testing, and how did that influence the decision to release them openly?
Well, according to the article, even with that robust malicious fine-tuning really pushing the models hard, these GPS models were unable to reach what they classify as high capability levels for dangerous misuse according to their framework.
So they deemed them safe enough for open release based on that.
That seems to be the conclusion, yes.
Yeah.
It informed their decision to confidently release them. And furthermore, to kind of contribute to the broader open source ecosystem safety, they're actually hosting a red teaming challenge.
Good challenge.
Yeah, with a pretty substantial $500,000 prize fund, encouraging the global community to help find novel safety issues or vulnerabilities. This really does feel like a meaningful step forward for open model safety standards across the industry, showing a commitment beyond just their own internal tests.
And just practically, for accessibility and the ecosystem around these models, how easy is it for a developer to actually get their hands on them and start building?
They've aimed to make it incredibly easy. The model weights themselves are freely available for download on Hugging Face. That's obviously a major hub for open source AI.
Standard practice now, almost.
Pretty much. And to make adoption even smoother, they've open sourced a Harmony renderer in both Python and Rust, plus reference implementations for popular frameworks like PyTorch and Apple's Metal platform. They also strategically partnered up before the launch with a whole host of deployment platforms: Azure, AWS, Hugging Face itself, hardware leaders like NVIDIA, AMD, ensuring broad accessibility and optimized performance across different systems.
So wide support from the get-go.
Seems like it. Microsoft is even bringing GPU-optimized versions of the smaller GPT-OSS to Windows devices directly. That makes it even easier for Windows developers to build with these open models right on their local machines.
Okay, so pulling back, looking at the bigger picture, what does this all really mean for the future of AI development? How does this kind of shift impact the broader landscape?
Well, I think this move significantly lowers barriers. You think about emerging markets, sectors with tight budgets, smaller organizations, individual researchers, people who maybe couldn't afford or didn't have the flexibility for purely proprietary API-gated models. It seems designed to accelerate cutting-edge research, definitely foster innovation by putting these powerful tools in more hands, and ultimately enable safer, more transparent AI development. Yeah. OpenAI themselves explicitly say this helps expand what they call democratic AI rails, making powerful AI truly accessible and beneficial for potentially everyone. It certainly signals a fascinating new chapter in that ongoing open versus closed AI debate.
So today we've really taken a deep dive into OpenAI's groundbreaking GPT-OSS model release. We've seen how these open-weight, high-performing, and incredibly efficient models seem poised to democratize advanced AI capabilities. They offer unprecedented flexibility and control for developers.
And we've also explored the rigorous safety steps they took and that commitment to fostering a safer, more transparent open source ecosystem. The practical relevance here is just immense, enabling everything from AI running directly on your device to more secure enterprise solutions. It really feels like a potential shift in the AI development landscape.
Yeah, this exploration has definitely shown us that the future of AI isn't solely about building ever bigger, more powerful models locked away somewhere. It's also increasingly about making that power accessible, making it customizable, and making it safe for everyone, regardless of their resources or where they are. It's a compelling development.
Absolutely. And this really raises an important question for you listening. With such capable models now becoming openly available, widely accessible like this, how might this shift reshape the next wave of innovation in your specific field or your area of interest? What new applications, what new solutions suddenly become feasible when advanced AI like this is truly in everyone's hands?
Definitely something to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. Thank you for joining us and keep exploring.